Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and welcome to everyone joining us for today's Interact with Interaction webinar, featuring our speakers, Brad Stites, Director of Sales, LexisNexis, and Scott Winter, Director of Product Management, Interaction. This month's webinar is What's New with Interaction, Building a Sustainable Growth Strategy in the Legal Industry's New Normal. My name is Dave, and I'm a marketing associate with LexisNexis. I will be your host for today's session. Interact with Interaction webinars are complementary to our customers and have been designed to help you get the most from your software by providing you with industry knowledge, plus time-saving tips and best practices for using Interaction. The format for today's webinar is the presentation provided by Brad and Scott, followed by a question and answer period. All of our attendees will be in listen-only mode for the duration of our presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them via the questions pane located on your webinar control panel. During the last 15 minutes of the webinar, Brad and Scott will answer your questions. Please note that we are recording today's event and all attendees will receive an email within 1 week with a link to the recording and slides. Also, there is a brief survey at the end of our webinar today that we ask you to please take a moment to complete. Your feedback will help us in planning our future events. Well, Brad and Scott, at this time, I will turn the webinar over to you.
All right, thank you, Dave. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. As Dave mentioned, my name is Brad Stites. I'm the Director of Sales here at LexisNexis. I have responsibility for our sales and client success teams, as well as responsibility for creating and executing against our sales growth strategy. I've been at LexisNexis for about 4 years now. Prior to that, I spent roughly 20 years in the corporate space where I led sales teams, pre-sales teams, and also created several different growth strategies. Some of you may be asking yourself, why am I on a webinar listening to a guy who has spent most of his time in the corporate space to talk to me about developing a growth strategy when I'm in the legal space? Well, I think what you'll find is that the core components of a solid growth strategy are the same regardless of what industry you're in. And like many of you, I have responsibility for and I'm measured by executing against our growth strategy. So we're all in the same boat. During our time today, I'm going to talk to you about what I consider some of the core principles or core components that go into a growth strategy. And then I'm going to turn it over to Scott Winter, our Director of Product Management, to show you how you can leverage technology to help execute against the plan that you've built. So to go ahead and get started, let's start by talking about some of the changes the legal industry has seen. As you all well know, the legal industry has been experiencing significant change over the past several years, and the pace of that change is extremely fast. Some changes are now just being considered the new normal, but as we all know, the industry continues to evolve. So to start, let's look at demand. When you look at the past several years, there's been a few ups and a few downs in the demand for legal services. However, the demand has remained mostly flat. And if you look at a lot of the predictions, they're saying that we're never going to see demand go back to the levels they were prior to the stock market crash in the 2008-2009 timeframe. So when I think about this, there's things that I believe contribute to this, but are also a result of this. So one example is corporations are cutting back. So we're finding that corporations, due to cost-cutting measures, are keeping more legal events inside and not leveraging the typical law firms like they used to in the past, thus greatly impacting demand. As you can see in this Altman wheel statistic that I have on the screen, 70% of firms say that they have lost business due to this trend of corporations keeping more law in-house. Next, just the demands of our clients have changed. So, and this is not something that's specific to the legal industry. This is something that's being seen across every industry. And that's just, we all have mobile devices that we carry around. We have quick and easy access to online services. We're plugged in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's kind of changed our expectation so that we want immediate access to whatever we want. and we want that access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So this has caused law firms to change how they do things, okay, but it's also fueled the growth of some of the alternative service providers. So you've got your Rocket Lawyer, your LegalZoom online services that are leveraging those online capabilities to siphon as much demand as they can around the legal services they provide. But then you also have the global accounting firms that are now playing in this space, and they're starting to show some success around legal services. All of this leading to less demand for the typical law services. So higher competition, less demand. One of the things we identified, we did a survey earlier this year, our marketing and business development survey, and the number one stat that was leading to lost business was competition. And the crazy thing is here, this statistic went up 78% year over year. So that speaks to that pace of change that I talked about earlier. On top of the increase in competition, we're also seeing mergers and acquisition in the legal space at an all-time high. And then we hear some of these stories about firms that have closed their door despite size and experience just because they weren't able to evolve quick enough in this crazy market that we're in. However, others are adapting to the change. So although we see budgets remaining mostly flat, we have seen the way budgets are allocated change. So we found that 41% of law firm budget is now tied to technology, okay, which is up from past years. Also, at the same time, with the extreme change, we're finding that 40% of firm COOs say their business development strategy lacks sophistication. If there's ever a time that there's a need for a solid growth and business development strategy, now is that time. In a time like this, when you have a highly competitive environment and less demand, a solid growth strategy or business development strategy could be the key to failure or to success within your firm. So unfortunately, what I'm not going to do today is give you a fully baked plan that you can go execute against. The one thing I've found in my previous experience, as well as in meeting with law firms on a daily basis, we also saw this at our Accelerate conference in June, but there is no one-size-fits-all cookie-cutter approach to doing business development, okay? You need to do it the way that best fits within your firm's culture and that best meets your goals. So just at a high level, to kind of set the stage, the way I think about business development, I look at business development and sales as two halves of one whole. And if you look at that in a linear fashion, I view business development on the left-hand side, so the very early stages that tie more to the market, account level, the client level. And then on the right-hand side, I view the sales, so the execution of that strategy. Okay, the execution of those early stages, and this will be your late stages, which are going to tie more to the opportunity. So as I put together my thoughts on this, for ease, I've added them to three buckets: identify, track, and manage. And we'll go through each of these in a little more detail. So we'll start with identify. This is where you really start putting your plan together. Okay, and you need to start by asking a ton of questions. So at the high level, where's your firm looking to go? Okay, what does the end goal look like? Where are you looking to grow? You know, from a new perspective, are you looking to grow within new markets or new practice areas? Or are you just looking to grow accounts within the same practice areas that you've always had? From an existing perspective, are you looking to add accounts in the markets you play in and the practice areas you play in today? This is one that I hope is on everyone's plan. And then also retention. You've also got to think about retention. You want to make sure you're retaining your current accounts. There's a statistic that shows that it costs 7 times more to acquire a new account than it does to maintain the accounts you already have. Okay, so retention should be high on your growth strategy. Once you identify the target markets you're going at, you need to start setting realistic growth amounts. Okay, I look at those growth amounts from a dollars perspective, but also from a percentage. Okay, how much are we looking to grow in revenue, as well as what's the percentage we're looking to grow across each market? So once you know your destination, you know what your growth goals are, now you've got to start digging in. So you need to start researching these target areas. So the target markets, the target accounts, you need to know everything you possibly can about these accounts. You want your plan to be very focused. This is not the time to start boiling the ocean and trying to go after a bunch of new markets at once. You want to really fine tune this. In the past, one of the things I've always done is I've created a priority matrix, okay, so that I can qualify and score all of my target areas. Some of the things I look at in here is, one, do we have a relationship in this area? Is our brand known in this area? Okay, and then if we do have relationships in this area, what level are they at? Are they at the level they need to be? Are they at the decision maker level, or do we have more lower level relationships? And then leverage this prioritization to focus your limited resources. So one thing I've never heard in my past, and one thing I definitely can't say today is, oh, I've got all the resources I need, I don't need to worry about focusing. So we're all dealing with limited resources. We need to make sure our plan is focused and that we're focusing on the areas that are going to give us the biggest bang for our buck. As you start building out this matrix, you're going to find several things. One, you may find some areas, or hopefully you find some areas where, one, you've got extremely good relationships, and two, maybe you've played in those areas in the past, so you have some experience. Okay? These should immediately bubble to the top of that priority matrix, and they should become a very big focus of your plan going forward. You may also find that there's some accounts where you don't have the relationship, or some markets where you don't have the relationships you need, so you'll need to deploy the tactics to go out and foster those relationships. You'll also find that you may have some, you're going into a new practice area where your firm has not played in the past, so you're going to need to leverage marketing to build some brand awareness so they know who you are when you're out there talking to them. Next, so you've identified where you want to go, you've identified the growth targets for that. Now you need to set meaningful KPIs. These KPIs are going to be how you measure success as you go through this process. These are some of the KPIs I've used in the past, but your KPIs need to be specific to your firm and specific to your plan. Okay, so some of the ones I've used in the past, just to give you an idea, I've used number of new accounts. So what's my goal for this year? How many new accounts am I looking to add? Growth in specific areas, or percent of growth in specific areas. So if I'm going after new markets, what percent of growth am I looking at there? Through my traditional markets, am I looking to grow those? So set some percentages on that. Revenue goals. Okay, what is my end goal for the year? How much revenue am I looking to bring in, and what's that increase year over year? And then also set milestones. So these milestones are going to be your timeline. They're going to help keep everyone accountable to delivering on this plan. So how fast can I realistically get to these end goals? Set those milestones so that you can track to them. Okay, so these are just a few examples I use. Again, your KPIs need to be tied directly to your firm and to your growth strategy. However, I wanted to list some that I use. All right. Next, we move to track. So you've now identified your targets. You know your destination. You know where you're going. Okay? You've set your goals. You've set your KPIs you're going to measure against. Now, how are you going to track this information? This is where technology comes into play. You have to have the technology to track against these metrics. One of the keys to this is to have a single location or single repository that everyone can go to track this. One of the things we found in a survey we did earlier this year is that accountability was one of the biggest issues that firms were facing. So if you have a single repository where everyone can go to see information that you're tracking against your plan as well as your business development strategy, everyone is now accountable. They have to perform their tasks, they have to perform their activities, and everyone can see that. Also, you want the entire firm to have a view of what's going on. I've actually heard a couple of horror stories in this area in talking to firms. I heard the same story from two different firms, and that was that they had two different internal groups pitch the same piece of business to the same client. And what makes that even worse is that when they peeled back the layers on that, they identified that both internal groups were using slightly different messaging, but also slightly different pricing structures. So this is something that can easily be remediated by having a single location where everyone sees what's going on. They see who people are going after. They see what tactics are being used, and they see what target accounts we're working with. I also had something happen to me recently that kind of ties into this, and that was I purchased a software package for use here at LexisNexis within the sales organization. The sales process was about 6 months. The sales rep at the vendor and I worked very closely together for this 6 months. I ended up signing the contract. I saw value in the software. 2 months later, I started getting, so we were in the implementation phase, and I started getting daily voicemails and daily emails from a business development rep at this same company. And each of these voicemails and emails said, you know, we think that our software package can provide value to you at LexisNexis. And yeah, I agree, because I purchased it. So after about a week of this daily hounding and voicemails and emails, I finally reached out to the rep that I had worked with at the vendor and said, what the heck is going on here? Obviously, he was embarrassed. There was some egg on their face. If they had simply been using CRM the way you're supposed to, this would have never happened. Okay, so these are the things that affect our brand in the market that are very easily solved for. We talked about the accountability piece, but also a single tool or a single pipeline management tool, single business development tool. One thing you also want to keep in mind is you want that tool to look at all stages. So as I referenced earlier, you have the early stages that I look at as business development stages, targeting the client, the account, the market, and then the late stages, which are more the execution stages, which focus more on opportunity. You want to ensure whatever technology or tool you use looks at that entire continuum. Okay? What I've found in the past and some of the tools that I've used in the past, they only look at those late stages. So they're only looking at the opportunity level. You're missing out on all those earlier levels that are what's ultimately driving your pipeline. Okay, that's the stuff that you know is coming down the pipe, and you can expect later stages to come in as opportunities. So you want to make sure whatever tool you use looks at that entire continuum, and you don't want to lose sight into what's going on in the early business development stages. Other thing I do is I tightly define my sales stages and my business development stages. And there's a couple reasons why I do that. One, primarily, is I want everyone on my team to know exactly what constitutes an opportunity being in a particular sales stage. And the reason I want that is when I'm running pipeline reports, and I'm in these pipeline reports weekly, if I'm making any changes to my plan or I'm identifying any trends, I want to know for certain that the deals are in the appropriate stages, okay, whether it be business development stage or sales stage. I even take it as far as I set exit criteria for every stage. So now everyone knows in order for a deal to move forward in the pipeline, these are the criteria that have to be met. So now I can rest assured when I'm changing my plan or modifying my plan that the information I'm looking at is accurate and where it's supposed to be. The other thing I look at very closely is win rates, okay, win and loss rates. One of the things that surprised me in the business development survey that we did earlier this year is that only 60% of firms are actively tracking win and loss rates. Okay? This is mission critical information. Not only do you have to be tracking win and loss rates, okay, you need to know where you're winning and where you're losing so you can, again, hone that focus, but you also need to take that a layer down and identify why you're winning, why you're losing. Okay? This is going to help massage the plan for next year, as well as help you with any mid-year or midstream pivots. Other metric I track is average deal size. So you're going to want to know where your bigger deals are coming from. So if you have one practice group that's delivering very large deals and the win rate's fairly high, well, obviously that's going to become a very focus area in the next coming years or in this year. I've listed here some of the key metrics that I look at on a weekly basis. I mean, again, these are the metrics I look at. Your metrics should align with your KPIs, okay? And those KPIs that I mentioned earlier should align with your firm strategy. So this is an example of what I use. Take it for what it's worth. But one, pipeline ratio to goal. Okay? This is my pipeline health report. Do I have enough in the pipeline to achieve the goals that I set forward in my plan? total open opportunities. I want to know at any given time how many opportunities I have open. I also want to look at trends around that. Number of days in each sales stage. Okay, I track this pretty closely because two reasons. One, it helps with accountability. If I identify a deal is sitting in one stage for a long period of time, I can dig in and maybe it's just that, someone's not following up on an activity that they need to follow up on. Okay, so it drives to that accountability that we talked about earlier. Other thing that can be gained from this is if you have one stage, whether it be in your pipeline or your sales stage, or your early stage or late stage, you can identify, maybe some training issues. If you find that there's one stage where deals sit for a long period of time and that seems to be the norm, maybe there's some training that needs to be done with your professionals or your sales reps to help them move those deals forward. I also track opportunity conversion by stage. So I want to know what my percent chance to win is by each of the stages. Okay, this helps me drive what I call a weighted pipeline report that's a lot more accurate than just a pipeline ratio report. The other thing I do is I track the effectiveness of content by each sales stage. So we went through a process earlier this year where we aligned each piece of content to the most appropriate sales stage. And now what we do is we track win and loss information based on that content. The reason we do that is I want to ensure that our marketing team is focused on the best content that's allowing us to win deals. The greater precision you can have here, the better. You can't have enough information. So now you've identified where you want to go. Okay, you've set some growth targets based on that. You started identifying your KPIs. You develop the metrics that you're going to track. Now, what are you going to do with all that information? Well, the one thing you can't do is do nothing with that information. Okay, that's what's going to drive your future year plans as well as any mid-year pivots that you might need. So this is going to sound kind of geeky, but I love dashboards. Okay, I'm a dashboard guy. I live in dashboards. There's also, well, I'll tell you why I like dashboards so much. One is they're live. Okay, it's immediate access to real-time information. Plus, they're dynamic. I can get in there. I can move the data around, look at it from different angles, and see what's going on. I do use reports, but my view on reports is it's kind of static information over a period of time, and typically that period of time is something that's taken place in the past. Well, if I'm going to make a pivot to my plan, I want to know now, real time, that that pivot needs to take place. I don't want to know a month later, 2 months later. So I have all my KPIs set in dashboards. I look at them weekly, daily, and that's how I track all my metrics and my KPIs. The other thing I do is, because I do have this central repository where all the information sits and I have these dashboards built, all of my pipeline review meetings are done inside the tool, inside my CRM. Okay, everything is done within there. It allows me to have instant access to the information. It allows me to get in, move the information around, dig in and identify, what's taking place, but then also why certain things are taking place. All right, so we've covered quite a bit on what I think needs to go into a growth strategy as well as a business development strategy. The next phase of this is executing on your strategy. So we've talked a little bit about the process. We've talked about the metrics. Now we need to talk about the technology. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Scott Winter, who is our Director of Product Management, and he's going to show you how you can leverage technology to execute on the plan that you've developed.
All right, thanks, Brad. Great insights so far. And you guys should see a switch over to Business Edge at this point. So Business Edge is the business development pipeline module that you can attach to your interaction database. We'll start off on the dashboards. So the first thing you want to think about is really again, those insights, the dashboards, the reports, metrics, and basically getting an output from everything that your staff is putting into the system. And this is, Interactions, your one CRM system, it's one database, and this is one instance of Business Edge that everybody can connect to. So you get the collaborative spot that everybody's connected to, that you can really start to get this real-time information. So the dashboard we'll cover today is really around some of those outcomes. So really the KPIs that you see in most industries. And you have the percent of wins or losses or declines. You have the amount, and you also have that revenue number, so you can start to track what what's taken place with what you've done so far. Now, the decline and the no decision, we want to keep these separate. This is going to help give you, again, a good insight on we turned down the business versus we never heard back from somebody, or maybe there was, again, just no decision. Potentially there was an RFP on the table and they decided not to move forward with anybody. Now, we can also flip through and see different comparisons by your practice groups. We can look at the different opportunity types, jurisdictions, and so on. So this starts to get into the building phase of your system that Brad was talking about, that I think I need to do a quick refresh from being logged into the system for so long. All right, sorry about that. It's always going to be some sort of technical thing with a live demo. And here we go. All right, so we can switch to opportunity types. You get to pick what these types are. Again, you'll get good discussions on, I think RFP is a great example, or RFI. Is RFI an opportunity or is it not an opportunity? This was presented to me a couple of years ago in Atlanta, and I think of, is there really an outcome from an RFI? Do I win any business or not? So I think before that I thought of it as an opportunity, and now I really don't think that way. And again, this goes to show, like Brad said, this is not a one-size-fits-all type of solution. But again, we can start to see where we're winning, where we're losing more, and take that as some lessons learned. Why are we losing more of these informal pitches? Is it because we're not going through our standard process or through leveraging the business development team that we have to help coach the different lawyers or professionals in our firm? And then here we can also start looking at some origination source. So where is the ROI coming from? Is it from referrals? Is it seminars? Or is it some of the sporting events that we might be taking some of our top clients to? So thinking of all the precious business development marketing dollars you have, where's the best place you can start to put this information? So these are some of the dashboards that come out of the box, but again, every firm is different, and you're going to have different insights that you're looking for. So some of these are also out of the box, like the pursuit overview we're going to cover and jump into, but you have the ability to configure different dashboards on whatever data you would like to see. So if we jump between my overview or my in progress for pursuits, and we'll talk about those in a second, we can see some areas to look at, where our top practice areas are, or the different pursuit opportunities by revenue. But we can also get into our data areas. And this is where you can start to think about how you'd want to put together a report that you'd want to see. You might want to have it distributed to you automatically through email or something that, again, you're logged into on a daily or weekly basis. But you have full control to really start to configure this part of the system to get everything that you're looking for. Now, if we go to the very beginning part of this, and I'm starting to think about companies that I want to target. And before we even get into maybe a pursuit or an opportunity, we probably want to do some research on the company I'm looking at. So if I take a look at Intel, and this goes along with the, you have a business development person that might be calling on somebody a couple months after a deal's been closed, really doesn't put the business in the best light. And I actually had a similar story to this, buying a new house a couple months ago, and went through the whole process, pre-qualification, put an offer on a home, go through that fun closing process that none of us ever want to do again. And then after making a couple months of payments, I started getting emails from the company that were signed and had the signature block of the guy I was working with, and it's, hey, you got that pre-qualification, let's go get that new house for you. And really, it's like, what do you guys think me of? I'm just a number, like I'm not the person just spent a lot of money with you, and you have 30 years of my interest payments coming in. So really, just a small miss could be just a checkbox in their CRM, but a huge miss on the experience side of the client. So here in the company overview, we can go into Intel, and we can start to look at, are there any pursuits open? Are there any current opportunities, which we do have here? Past activities and relationships. And we'll dive a little bit more into each one of these widgets when we get into the pursuit. But here we can start to just understand what the company is and has the firm been working with this company at all. Now, what is a pursuit? What is an opportunity? So this gets to the left side, which is really business development, and the right side, which is more the sales or the execution of your sales strategy. But the pursuits are my targets. So what am I doing with these companies? And potentially it is a new company that moves into one of your locations. It's in an industry you serve today, or it's in one of those industries that you're wanting to maybe serve in, and but they don't have any idea who you are. So you really want to put this into a pipeline as an opportunity that I would forecast to my boss, Brad, and have him see that, here's this company we're going after, but really I don't know if I can win any business. I'm still in that early discovery stage. However, I still want to have a plan I want to execute and how I can collaborate with the teams at the firm to get to the point of hopefully moving to opportunities and selling the business. So your list of pursuits here, this would be everything on that BD on that left side. You have the ability to filter this through dates, through your leads. So if you're actually having one-on-one meetings, you can drive it all from the system. You don't have to print different reports or go to another system to get the information. This can really take you through your 30-minute to an hour meeting that you have every couple of weeks to help drive business development. The pursuit types, again, as you're building the system to meet your needs, you can set up, are these business plans with our lawyers? Is this a potential lateral move plan? So, we all go through the lateral hiring process, but statistically, there's not a great ROI. So when we get that new lawyer coming over, what is the book of business that we're going to be tackling? And let me put them, the top clients, into this table of pursuits, and now we can have meetings and we can see how we've been moving forward with the plan into the different stages. This can also be your panels. So first opportunities to get on a panel, but then you win the right to be on the panel for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. What is the business you're getting from it? And, can I use this data afterward to see if I want to spend the time to get back on the panel? Did I get the business that I expected? Now, as we look at the main screen here, you see a lot of these A1s, A2s, and they're going to go down to Bs and Cs and so on. So this gets into the priorities. So like Brad said, we all have limited resources, and you really need to focus on your best chances of winning and the best pursuits, best opportunities. So we have 4 quadrants in Business Edge. You have A, B, C, and then 1, 2, 3. The 4th quadrant is not defined. So basically it's empty, or it's there. It's on your radar, but it's not sitting at the top of any of your priorities. And the ABC, verse 1, 2, 3, you can think of ABC as strategic, and maybe the 1, 2, 3 is a monetary value. So maybe there's a convenience place that you're working with, and you find out that the owner went to college with the CEO of Coke. They now went from a low priority, maybe a low strategic priority of a C and a low monetary revenue to 3, to maybe high strategic of an A, but still low as a 3 for the monetary side. So again, different ways that you can blend the technology in with your process. Now, if you're using this to leverage your meetings with your staff, you can click on them and get a slight little overview of what this opportunity or what this pursuit is, what the estimated value is. And we have expected revenue versus estimated value, and this allows for a reforecasting, if you will. So when I first open this up, I might think I can get so much money, but then as I understand what their needs are, what their goals, maybe we only win part of the business, not all the business. You can bring the estimated value down to or up based on what your findings are. But if I want to dive into this, you just click on it, and it's now going to take you to the meat of the pursuit. So again, the details are going to give you the practice groups that are interested, the types of work. Again, this really gets into the goals and objectives as you meet with these prospects. What do they want to accomplish, and then how can you support that? And this can help with your cross-selling. So as you get into maybe the different initiatives of growing the account or growing by revenue, which you can set up in your initiative, this is going to help you start to put that plan together. Now, the stages on the right side, like Brad said, you're going to have different stages that you develop. Now, stages and pursuits are different than stages and opportunities. So you might even have a conflict stage that lives in both of them, because a conflict could rise at any point. So as you get into all the heavy lifting work of an RFP, make sure that there's not a conflict or commercial conflict that could take place. Now, this is where demo data and this type of metadata don't work well together. And you can see I've been in an opportunity for one of the stages for 758 days. But this is really important to help you understand, like Brad said, am I in a stage more often than not for an exceeded amount of days or excessive amount of days that we see as a problem we might want to tackle or readjust our process. This can help you identify this. It can also help show you, you have a higher chance of winning, or your trends are higher at winning if you're in a stage for less than 30 days. And by the way, here's a list of all the stages that have exceeded 30 days. Now you have something that you can execute against. If we go down to the task management, again, now the collaboration starts to take place. How can we work with the different people in our staff? You have the library involved, you have the business development managers, you have where the leads and the partners might be involved. Now, with Business Edge and just with interaction and our vision into the future, having new systems that people have to learn and always work with is not always going to help you guys get adoption and get people using the system. And so with tasks, I don't want every stakeholder, everybody that's involved with the pursuit to necessarily have to log into the system and see what their tasks are. And that's why the system actually emails you. So as soon as a new task is created, so here I have a send an article to Peter, and Ed Roberts is assigned to it. Again, sending a small asset, a give to get. Ed Roberts probably is not going to log into the system, but as soon as I hit save, Interaction is going to send Ed an email. It's going to come right to his Outlook, and it's going to say, hey, Scott just created a new task for you. They can click in the link from the email, and it's going to give them a quick pop-up that they can add notes to, make any adjustments to this. But it allows them to work purely from Outlook, and they don't even have to log into Business Edge. But you start to get the collaboration. You get to run the reports and make sure that people are completing things on time, so you get the visibility of the accountability. If that makes sense. Next, we have the relationships. So again, the who knows who in this industry, really this is what drives CRM, and this is really what makes Interaction different than the other systems out there. So we have 18 contacts that we know about that work at Intel, and we have relationships with 11 of them. So this gets into the knows relationship. So if you have them in an Outlook and they sync over, that's what's going to make the 11 kick in, or this know score. Now, if you have IQ, which is our ERM system, which is mining your Exchange server looking for communication patterns, this is now going to add the other areas to this, which is going to show you from 0 or from 1 week to very strong what your relationship score is. I'm sorry, I did something I hate when people do, and I just did it myself. It's not a relationship score, it's an engagement score. So how often you're emailing, how often you're meeting, how often you have different activities and interaction. That's what drives engagement. It's not subjective, it's based on actual metrics and data. But here we can see that Jane Tarnoff has a very strong relationship with Dave Bernison. Now, if I'm trying to get again, if I'm at the early stages of this, looking for an introduction, Dave is probably my guy to do that. Now, if you're looking at, is this a good opportunity to go after? Potentially this tells you it's not. I think typically there's around 7 decision makers in any opportunity. Right now I have relationships with, or engagement with 3 people. Is this one that I put as a lower priority, or do I change my effort and take it to another pursuit where I have a better chance of winning? Or do we put together a 30-day plan to get better engaged? We can leverage Jane Tarnoff, who's the most connected person at Intel, and get to know these 8 people that we don't have engagement with today. So again, you can really take whatever decision you want with the data that we're going to give you here. Next, we have activities. So this is going to show you the different activities that are taking place in the firm. We can go to a list view that you can click into and see the information. The summary view, not a great representation here, but typically you have incoming versus outgoing activities. So where we're hearing from the prospect or client versus things that we're sending out. And also you have the different tags. But here you can see, is there a balance? Do the trends look right? Are we losing reach with them? So we're getting less information from them. Could that be a problem? Could we potentially be at risk of losing this client with something that could be taking place? So you can use that maybe as an alert to take an initial attempt to correct that. Now, if we start going up on the right side, you have some custom fields. So this allows you to configure interaction to some additional information you might be looking for. So here I have a DMS system that you might want to connect out to, or experience management, your conflict results. So this could basically be just what you want to set up there. Notes, who's doing what. So as we have our meetings, we're talking about the pursuits, going through our business development meetings. These can be meeting notes, but basically this will just take order and again, help us always know, keep track of the left hand and the right hand, and when we ever talk to the client, we have some quick updates of what has taken place in the past. Now, with all this stuff around the pursuits, when do we get actually to trying to sell and win business? So you have associated opportunities that now can be connected to the pursuit when we get to the right part of the stage. Here I have a total of 7 opportunities open. The estimated value is $300,000. The expected revenue is $107. Again, that's because there's 7 opportunities and you have each one in a different stage. What's open, what's been won, what we lost, what we declined, what we had no decision with. So now you can start, again, if this is a panel, over 2 years, did I get the business I expected? Is it worth trying to renew the panel and get back onto it? Now, if I go ahead and hit view all instead of add new, we can see all the opportunities that are connected. And then if I want to go ahead and click into one of these, you're going to see that, actually, I'm going to go to a different one that has more information. So here we have the formal pitch. Again, the details get into a little bit more specific fields that you might want to track. Again, the ROI is from your origination source. Where did it come from? You can start to leverage that. If there is a competing law firm you're going up against, you have the new stages that you have created or that you have created in your design of the system. And then the only difference here, and we have the different ad hoc tasks, you have the same relationships, the activities, and the reason you have all these duplicate areas are because opportunities can live without a pursuit. So you could get something that comes in the door, it's an RFP, and you want to go after the RFP, and you're not going through that early stage. This doesn't actually have to be connected to the pursuit. So we want to still give you the relationship information and everything that you use through the pursuit page on the opportunity page. You also see some different custom fields where you might be tracking diversity. Is there an AFA requested? Are they green? Are you green? And are you losing business because of any of those? And could this change any initiatives in the future? Now, the main difference are the target dates. So these are templated tasks that you're going to have on every opportunity. So typically, you always have a draft, a review, maybe you'll have a second round, a second review. That's up to you. When is the proposal due? I think the big one that everybody misses and has problems with is the decision. When is the decision due? Is it a date that's listed in an RFP? Is it a date that I can actually go ask the attorney or the lawyer, depending if we're in the UK or over in America here on the webinar? Or is it one of the professionals from any of our non-legal firms? But did they come up with a decision? Do we need to reach out to the client? But this is going to help Brad see that there are metrics, our KPIs. Did we win it? Did we lose it? And it's not just going to sit out there forever. So this can help remind us of that, and it's something that we can track and look forward to. And again, all this information is going to help understand the ROI pretty much of your investment in going after the business, the resources that are building RFPs and helping to execute that strategy, the ROI of your marketing and business development dollars. Are we getting business from the people and the companies that we're inviting to our events? And overall, just the ROI of the system. Being able to have one system, one collaborative place that you can work with and really track what you're doing on a daily basis. So, and then this would lead back to your insights and your dashboards. So now starting to understand that data. I think that is everything that I was going to cover there.
Okay. Thanks, Scott. That was a good example of how you can leverage technology to one, execute on your strategy, but then also track and measure success of your strategy. So we've shared a lot in a pretty short amount of time. Again, these were my views on how to build a growth strategy and how I think about it. Hopefully you can leverage some of that information. Hopefully you found that information useful. But I do want to reiterate one thing I said earlier, and that's, at this time when we're seeing extremely high competition in the legal space, we're seeing new disruptors in the market, we're seeing less demand. This is a time that you absolutely have to have a solid growth strategy, and you have to be tracking against that strategy daily. So one last final thought, and that's, we've talked about some of the craziness that's going on in the legal space with the different trends and changes and the speed of that. But according to a report recently, 69% of firms believe that pace of change is going to continue to increase. Okay, so with that, thank you very much for joining us. I do think we're going to take a few questions here if we have some. So I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Dave to tee up some of the questions.
Well, thank you, Brad and Scott, for your very informative session. This does conclude the presentation portion of our webinar. As a reminder, if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask them via the questions pane located on your webinar control panel. Now, before we start with our Q&A, I have a few reminders to our listeners today. As Interaction customers, you have access to webinars, newsletters, tip videos, product updates, and more. Our Interact with Interaction program is designed to help you optimize how your firm uses Interaction. Don't forget to update your communication preferences to receive these ongoing valuable resources. Also, if you aren't a member of the Interaction CRM LinkedIn group, join today for best practice sharing and continual updates on what's happening in the Interaction world. You'll find links to update your communication preferences and to join the LinkedIn group in the presentation slides provided to you after this webinar. Well, we had a very interesting and relevant topic today, and we have some questions coming in. Brad and Scott, I'm ready to give you the first question, and that is this: what type of data integration do you have with a pitch tracking software?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, there's Pitch Perfect, there's Course, there's a couple systems out there in the market. We've been looking and speaking about these for some time now. We've actually been going through a process of revamping a lot of our partner ecosystem. And so Chrome River is one of the latest ones that we've been updating and working on getting out the door. So we're still in the process of investigating which is the right system to use now that we have some of the new contracts in place. So this will be something I'm going to keep an eye, try to start looking at to execute sooner than later. It could be something with word merges, and we have some different ideas of the technology to make this easiest to use for you. But something on our radar. You can do some exports. You can do some things with the reports. So there might be some ways we could try to help with the API now, but I'm looking to make something a little bit more formal with one of the companies in the near term.
Okay, we have another question. You referenced a LexisNexis business development survey. Where can I get a copy of that?
Okay, yeah, I know I referenced that survey a couple of times on my presentation. So that's the marketing and business development survey that we did earlier this year. Actually, we've done it for the last couple of years. The information about that survey can be found at interaction.com. If I remember correctly, it's about halfway down the page. There'll be a red bar that references the marketing and business development survey for 2018. So you can get that information there. Any other questions, Dave?
We do see one coming in from Andy. He asks, on the Business Edge Companies page, where is the information in the details area coming from? Is that information in Interaction as well?
Yeah, I think that just to make sure that we're talking about the right area. So you have the details area here. This is coming from the profiles that you currently have today in Core Interaction. So support, because these IDs are unique to each client. It's not a single ID that we ship with the software because they're all customizable. We just leverage support to set those IDs up in your tenant, and then they are imported or pulled up to the cloud from there. So something you have today in your database, we just match to.
I'm not seeing any further questions at this time. And well, that concludes today's webinar, and I certainly want to thank Brad and Scott once again for their excellent presentation, and to all of our attendees for taking time out of your busy day to join us. I do have a few quick follow-up reminders. All attendees will receive an email within 1 week with a link to a recording of today's webinar and slides. In closing, there is a brief survey at the end of our webinar today that we ask you to please take a moment to complete. Your feedback will help us in planning our future webinars. Again, thank you all for your time today. I hope everyone has a great weekend.